Now on the APEC VIP hotline, cutting-edge training for the serious athlete, apecgo.com. Joining us now, the managing editor of Dave Campbell's Texas Football and TexasFootball.com. It's Travis Stewart. How you doing, Travis?
I'm good, bud. I'm good.
Thanks very much for coming on with us, as always. I want to talk to you. First of all, you missed a heck of a game, White House John Tyler, last Friday night. I'm telling you, it was great.
Well, White House looked like they had them dead to rights. I mean, that was a Don Tyler boat that was taken on water in a hurry. I think White House had built up, a 24-0 lead at one point?
That's correct. That's correct.
I think that, more often than not, that's going to be church in high school football when you're playing a really good opponent like White House. But I think John Tyler, we learned two things. One, that John Tyler's offenses can be down but never out.
Right.
We know that Greg Ward can do a lot of damage, even running the ball. Even when they're down by 3 scores, he can do damage running the football. We learned that Ty Bowser is as destructive a defensive force as there is in East Texas.
Yes, he
is. With 5 sacks. And then I think the last thing we learned is that White House is very dangerous, and they can beat a lot of teams in the playoffs, but they'll only be able to do it if they can get that sometimes shaky defense sorted out. If they get that sorted out, they could be a very dangerous team in 4A.
I will tell you one thing, too. Keep an eye on Patrick Mahomes. He played one of the most courageous games at quarterback and ended up throwing for 445 yards and 4 touchdowns against a John Tyler defense that beat him up all night long. He is the real deal.
And we've got him, at least another year?
Yes.
2 years, I think, right?
1 year,
so, I mean,
1 year.
One more year. So, as a senior, he's got a chance to really blossom. And with Greg Ward graduating at that point in time, I mean, there's an excellent opportunity for him to be regarded as the player in East Texas. Maybe not the recruit, that's always kind of a crapshoot, but the high school player in East Texas next year. And White House would be, depending on what they do with their coaching situation, obviously, but that would put them right in the forefront of that entire region.
All right, we'll move away from high school football and then come back to it in a few minutes. But first of all, when we saw RG3 last year, we thought we were seeing a once-in-a-lifetime kind of a player. As it's turned out, we're watching the same kind of kid playing at Texas A&M 1 year later in Johnny Manziel. He's
pretty spectacular, isn't he? I mean, my wife, I've never made a secret that my wife is Longhorn through and through. And I was at home watching A&M Alabama, and she was out running errands. She came home, and I shooed her over to the couch and said, I know you don't want to watch A&M, and I know you certainly don't want to watch Alabama, but you need to watch this kid because you don't know when you're going to see another one like him play at the level he's at right now. And I'll be darned if she didn't sit there, perch up on the couch, and she watched him. And she was fascinated by it, the same that the rest of us are. This is a vague metric when gauging Heisman campaigns, but we've always used this in the office a little bit, was when you look back at a season 20 years from now, who will stand out to you as this year belonged to this player? That's not the only metric in gauging a Heisman, but it's important. And even though Colin Klein has an undefeated Kansas State team rolling into what very well could be a title game, and I think he's still my front runner, I have to admit, when I look back on this season 20 years from now, I will remember first what Johnny Football done. And I think you'd be hard-pressed, no matter who you root for, you'd be hard-pressed to say that's not the truth.
Well, the thing that strikes me, because I got to see Colin Klein in person Saturday night. I went to the TCU game against Kansas State. And they're very steady. They're very fundamentally sound. They don't beat themselves. They don't make mistakes. But I would give Colin Klein the Heisman Trophy only in a year when there's just nobody else out there. Suddenly, Manziel's out there, and I don't even care if he's a freshman. The guy played the greatest game you could play on the biggest stage at Alabama on national television, beating the number 1 team. I don't know how you don't vote for the guy.
Yeah, and I agree with that. We've been getting a lot of emails from Aggie fans and to be honest with you, Manziel fans, because those two things are not necessarily the same all the time. There's a lot of people who love Manziel who don't necessarily root for A&M. But and one of the emails made a great point. It said, I know they don't give it to freshmen. They just don't do it. But the unspoken reason why they don't is twofold. One, because the Heisman is, to a certain extent, a lifetime achievement award. It shouldn't be. It's supposed to be a single-season award, but you're lying to yourself if you say there's not an element of career achievement in there. And two, because you work on the assumption that, well, he's a freshman, he'll be there later. And we don't want to give out 2 or 3 Heismans to the same guy if we don't have to, so we think he'll be there down the line. But the truth of the matter is, he could have an unbelievable year, and then in his first practice of the season, he could tear his ACL, MCL, PCL, dislocate his kneecap, and break his fibula, and he'd never play football again. And we would go down, sit there thinking, is the Heisman Trust would sit there thinking, did we whiff on this one? Did we maybe miss the deserving candidate, thinking he would be there later on, and now he's not? And I'm not saying that is the reason why you have to vote for a kid, but if his campaign really has been the best, and he has been truly magnificent, then you can't say we won't vote for a freshman for XYZ just arbitrarily. It shouldn't be that way.
I mean, if you're talking about the most outstanding player in college football right now, and you put him up next to Colin Klein, I mean, what do you get, honestly, in your opinion?
It's a tough call. I mean, they do two very different things. If you put Colin in A&M's offense, maybe things would be a lot different. I don't know, but and I do think there is a certain element of Johnny's numbers are probably slightly inflated because he's playing for Sumlin and Kingsbury. I mean, people said that Case Keenum's numbers were inflated because of Sumlin, so it's only fair to say the same about Johnny, even if he's playing in the SEC. So I refuse to say that the offenses will make or break those two candidates, but what Kansas State has done and what Colin Klein has been for that Kansas State program, to a certain extent, leans on some intangibles that are difficult to gauge statistically, whereas Johnny's going to dominate every statistical category. I mean, it's a foregone conclusion. But some of what Colin's done for that program, and Bill Snyder for that matter, but some of what Colin's done for that Kansas State program, which has no tangible advantage ever for anyone who's ever been to Manhattan, Kansas, that should not be a football power, but what he's been able to do with it, I think it gives him a certain intangible factor that's hard to deny as well.
I'll tell you what I find interesting when I think about this, though. When you start talking about the regions of the country and who's going to vote for whom, normally Colin Klein would have gotten the Big 12 vote, which would have included Texas. Now, that's not going to happen. Texas is going to be carried by Johnny Manziel, and Manziel will carry the SEC for the most part, I would think. Then you get the West Coast with the Oregon running back. And so suddenly the amount of people out there to vote for Kansas State, where he will be the overwhelming favorite in that region, it shrinks significantly. And that's why I think it could be a real long shot for Colin Klein to win the thing now.
You know what? We should get you a desk at CNN because it's astonishing how much, from time to time, how much the Heisman voting process resembles that of a presidential election.
It does.
Obviously, we don't have an electoral college, but it's not as simple as you have 400 people just voting. You know, it's not that easy. You do have things, like you said, the regional balance. And remember in 2008 when we were looking at Texas Tech, and, you know, you're saying, oh, well, Graham Harrell could be a Heisman candidate and Crabtree could be a Heisman candidate. But in the end, they were partially both doomed because they were going to split their own bases vote. There is a certain element of geographics and voter breakdown when it comes to a Heisman race. And in this case, you're very right. There's a chance that Klein and Manziel could both be torpedoed by the fact that their region could be split over those two candidates.
Could happen. All right, I got to ask you one other question that came up yesterday, because now the real evil laugh thing that's coming out right now is the very real possibility that the Cotton Bowl could feature a Texas A&M matchup, which just makes me chuckle just thinking about it. Does DeLoss Dodds have enough power that he could blow that out of the water before it actually came to fruition? Would he try to duck A&M?
Yeah, there's an insinuation with the word duck that's fairly dangerous there. If they were ducking because they didn't want to play, they're afraid they're going to lose A&M, I doubt there's any AD in the country that would make that call. If they were trying to A&M because they want to stick to their guns of not playing them, then I guess that's something they could conceivably do. The debate I thought first arose maybe 2 weeks ago. I started hearing that hypothesis circulated about them maybe not wanting to play A&M. And the thing that people forget is, even though the Cotton Bowl, I mean, is the bowl of the state of Texas, and it's inconceivable and actually mildly infuriating to think that any team in Texas would ever turn down the Cotton Bowl for any reason unless their proposed opponent had done something just hideously morally reprehensible. But you can turn down any bowl bid you want. And I mean, if they ever got to the point of the Cotton Bowl and they just really didn't want to play A&M, they could always just say no. And it's not like they're bound to go to that bowl just because the bowl requested of them.
But what a PR disaster if he does that, huh?
Yeah, and I had a Longhorn person tell me a couple days ago, yeah, I wouldn't mind ducking the Cotton because I don't want to play A&M regardless of the situation. And I said, whatever you think the blowback and lashback would be on that situation, double it and make it twice as long. It would be way worse than you imagine, the blowback, if they tried to do that. And honestly, I don't think there's a snowball's chance that Texas wouldn't end up playing A&M in the Cotton Bowl if that bowl had been selected. I can't imagine that would be the scenario. If both of those teams are picked by the Cotton Bowl to go to the Cotton Bowl, that's who you're going to see playing in the Cotton Bowl. I would be stunned. It would be the most shocking thing of my career at Dave Campbell's if for some reason that matchup did not happen when the bowl selected.
Makes for some tasty gossip right now, though, don't you think?
It is intriguing. I will give you that. It's very intriguing.
Oh, I love it. All right, where are you guys going to be this week?
We're actually heading out to your neck of the woods, buddy. We're going to be at Tyler-Rose Stadium for Van versus Henderson on Friday night.
Hey, come a day early, and you can see Canton and Gilmer the night before.
Well, actually, Jeff Power, my co-host on that show, will be in a day early, and he will be at that game filming it. So we're going to have highlights of Canton Gilmer within the first 6 or 7 minutes of our show on Friday night. We want to make sure that matchup gets highlighted too.
Outstanding. Well, we're glad to see you coming to East Texas. I wish I could see you. I'll be headed over to Memorial to watch Ennis and White House play on Friday night, but we're glad you're coming to East Texas. Yeah, I think you'll have a good time this weekend.
Yeah, email me some barbecue suggestions for when I come in on Friday afternoon.
We can fix you up with that. That's no problem. There's barbecue places and Baptist churches on every corner, okay? I guarantee you. Hey, thanks very much, Travis. We love talking to you. Hope you have a great week.
You too, buddy.
All right, Travis Stewart, the managing editor of Dave Campbell's Texas Football and TexasFootball.com on Bryan Houston Sports Radio Live on 99.3 Talk FM.